Thank you very much, Raj. It was a fascinating discussion with Ian. Once again, thanks very much, Ian, for joining us from London on what the We Protect Global Alliance does. We now move from London all the way across the world to New Zealand. Our next speaker joins us from there. She leads Microsoft's Asia Pacific, focus on digital safety, and she is spearheading something very, very important that Ian also spoke about: the role of corporates and industry in fighting online child sexual abuse. Now, as a tech industry leader backing the Technology Coalition, Microsoft seeks to eradicate online child sexual abuse through collaboration, innovation, and research. So to tell us more about what Microsoft is doing, it's my great privilege to welcome Liz Thomas. She's the Regional Digital Safety Lead for the Asia Pac region at Microsoft. And I must thank you so much, Liz, for joining us today. I know it's past midnight in New Zealand. You've still taken out the time to join us today. So thank you very much indeed for that. So Liz is Microsoft's lead on digital safety for Asia Pacific. She coordinates the initiatives and strategies related to digital safety across the region and supports work to address illegal and harmful content online, including child sexual exploitation and abuse imagery. Before joining Microsoft in April this year, Liz worked as a policy and legal advisor for the New Zealand government, including in the Ministry for Foreign Affairs and Trade, the Department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet, and the New Zealand Treasury. Liz graduated from the University of Otago with a bachelor's degree in arts and law and has a master's degree in international relations from the Australian National University. So Liz, thank you very much for joining us today. We really want to hear from you on what Microsoft is doing to combat this menace. Over to you, Liz.
Fantastic, and thank you very much for that kind introduction, Vivin. And I will apologise at any point if I cease to make sense. I blame it entirely on the hour in New Zealand. Brilliant, thank you. But no, thank you very much for the opportunity to present today. I'm really delighted to have the opportunity to join this event and to contribute to the really important conversation that you're having on these issues. This summit is a great initiative, and it's really impressive to see the work that's been done on Project Masoom, but also just to see the reach and the voice of the Young Indians movement. So thank you very much for having me. Could I get you to go to the next slide, please? Brilliant, thank you. So today I'd like to talk to you about 4 things. I will start by talking a little bit about Microsoft's approach to digital safety. So how we approach keeping children safe online as a company. I'd then like to talk to you a little bit about some of the technical tools that we've developed to aid in that effort. I'll then provide an overview of industry's collective efforts through the Technology Coalition. And then finally, touch on what you can do to help in this effort. Next slide, please. Great. So before we get any further though, I'd like to start by introducing Microsoft's approach to digital safety. Next slide, please. Fantastic. So safety has been a priority at Microsoft for more than 2 decades. And for us, digital safety is about empowering consumers to have safe and trusted experiences on our products and services. It's about helping people to have positive experiences online and to minimize the risks from what we call the 4 Cs. So the risks from illegal and illegitimate content, contact, conduct, and commercial activities. And how do we do that? Well, we do that through a 4-pronged approach. The first of these is that we create tools, features, and functionality in our products and services, having considered the safety of our users right from the outset of product development. We also devise and implement internal policies, standards, and procedures, all with safety as a core priority. And because no one entity or organization can tackle these complex and complicated issues alone, we embrace a multi-stakeholder model and we collaborate with others in the technology industry, government, civil society, academia, and we do that on a whole range of programs and initiatives. And finally, we invest in research, public awareness raising, and education to help encourage sound online practices and habits, and to help individuals and families play an informed role in their own online safety. And this includes our annual digital civility research, which measures the experiences of teenagers and adults about 21 different online risks. And we also we've conducted that research annually in India. And the last 2 points on this slide really underline why I'm delighted to have the opportunity to be here today. Microsoft collaborates with many of the other entities who are speaking over the course of this summit, indeed including with the We Protect Global Alliance. So it was great to be able to hear Ian's presentation before. And we're really pleased to have the opportunity to hear what Project Masoom has been doing on awareness raising and to contribute to that effort. If you could move forward to the next slide, please. So I'd like to drop slightly more into the detail now, starting with our policies. And as you'll see on the slide, when people want to use Microsoft hosted consumer services, they sign up to the Microsoft Services Agreement. And in so doing, they agree to a code of conduct. And this code of conduct states that it is prohibited explicitly to engage in activity that exploits, harms, or threatens to harm children. And when that code of conduct is violated, we will take action against an account. The account will be closed and a report will be filed with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in the US, which can then be referred on to law enforcement. The next slide, please. Great. And so this slide also helps provide an overview of Microsoft's efforts on digital safety over time. There's quite a lot on here, but so I won't go into detail, but I would like to highlight a couple of points. In 2008, we partnered with Dartmouth College and Hani Farid to develop PhotoDNA, a tool that's now widely used by tech companies and organizations worldwide to help find child sexual abuse material. And I'll talk in a little more detail about that shortly. In 2018, we led a 360-degree hackathon, bringing together people from a variety of disciplines on combating child online grooming for sexual purposes. And this led to the development of a grooming detection tool, which is now freely available through the NGO Thorn. But you'll see on there, these efforts are part of a long history and a variety of efforts across those 4 pillars. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk about the 2 technical innovations that I've already mentioned in a little more detail, as I know there was some interest in hearing how technology can help support work on child safety. And there are, of course, other tools available for tech companies, but these are the 2 that Microsoft has played a key role in developing. And so the first of these is and probably the best known, is PhotoDNA, which has been around since 2008. And PhotoDNA is one part of what we do to protect our customers and our systems by creating a safer online environment. PhotoDNA is a robust hash matching technology. And what that means is that it creates a unique digital signature of an image that's known as a hash, which can then be compared against a database of other digital signatures or other hashes of illegal photos to help find copies of the same illegal image. So a hash is like a digital fingerprint, and it helps to identify an image, even if parts of that image have been altered to try and disguise it. Matching these hashes allows us to find known child sexual abuse material. And in doing so, PhotoDNA helps to detect, disrupt, and report the distribution of child sexual exploitation and abuse imagery. PhotoDNA is not facial recognition software, and it can't be used to identify the person or object in an image. The hashes aren't reversible and can't be used to recreate images, but they do allow us to detect existing material. And we continue to provide this technology for free to over 300 qualified organizations, including technology companies, developers, and non-profit organizations for the sole and exclusive purpose of combating child sexual exploitation and abuse. And we also use it on a number of our own consumer services. Next slide, please. And in January, Microsoft, in cooperation with 3 other technology companies, announced the free availability of a grooming detection technique to help identify potential instances of child online grooming for sexual purposes. The tool helps find these where they may be taking place in non-real-time text-based chat conversations. So this technique can be used by online services that offer a chat feature to identify signals of potentially problematic conversations. And by identifying these potentially problematic conversations, they can be followed up with human review. They help find signals that could indicate inappropriate or unlawful conduct, and to help signal that a human moderator should take a look to see if there's an issue. Microsoft has partnered with the NGO Thorn to make this available to qualified users, and these include technology companies of all sizes, law enforcement agencies, and civil society organizations. Next slide, please. And stepping into a little more detail on the grooming detection tool, it works by leveraging certain regular expressions in chat conversations. So what it does is it evaluates and rates a series of characteristics in those conversations and assigns a probability rating to each aspect of that conversation. So depending on the language, a rating is made based on the likelihood that that signals something that we should be looking at. These ratings can then be used by individual companies to determine when conversations should be sent to human moderators for review. They can be then reviewed to see if there are indications in those of child online grooming for sexual purposes. And if that's confirmed, Microsoft then files a report with the National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children and refers the issue to the relevant law enforcement agency if it's known. Now, this tool still needs more data to help train the algorithm, but we think it has a lot of promise for limiting harm. It doesn't operate in real time because it does look at past conversations, but it does operate at the earliest stage of potential exploitation. By knowing where potential grooming conversations could be happening, the technique can help prevent in-person meetings between adults and minors, and therefore help prevent hands-on instances of child sexual abuse. And the next slide, please. But as I noted earlier, technical approaches are only one part of the way that we work to address child online sexual exploitation and abuse. We also collaborate across industry, including in our role as a founding member of the Technology Coalition. Next slide, please. So the Technology Coalition is a US-based nonprofit that has been around for around 15 years. The Technology Coalition has 18 member companies who work collaboratively day to day to combat child sexual exploitation and abuse online. The Tech Coalition has had a certain degree of success, particularly through mentoring and upskilling newer tech companies to address child sexual exploitation and abuse imagery on their services. And through those efforts, it's helped to build a strong sense of community across industry. But the world has changed since the Tech Coalition members first came together in 2006, with an explosion of new internet services and many million more people now online. And so to ensure that the next phase of the Technology Coalition's work continues to address new and emerging challenges, the Coalition in 2020 announced Project Protect. And Project Protect is a renewed investment and ongoing commitment to our work seeking to prevent and eradicate online child sexual exploitation and abuse. Next slide, please. So through Project Protect, the Technology Coalition is looking to execute on a strategic plan with 5 pillars, as outlined on the slide. And so these are enabling and ensuring greater information and knowledge sharing among industry, so we can all learn from each other. It includes technology innovation, so establishing a multi-million-dollar research and innovation fund to help keep building the technological tools that we need to more effectively prevent and work to eradicate child sexual abuse material. It's all about research, so improving our understanding of the issue and of effective measures to prevent and disrupt child sexual exploitation and abuse. One of the pillars is also transparency and accountability. So driving accountability across industry by sharing our insights and progress through meaningful reporting. And then finally, rather than being a by industry, for industry organisation, we want to bring together technology companies, governments, civil society, and academics to drive collective action. You know, Ian laid it out well in the last presentation as well. We all know that no single entity or sector can tackle these crimes and issues alone. And we want to make the Technology Coalition the industry hub that embraces collective action and provides a point for that kind of collaboration. Next slide, please. Great. And taking that point on collective action, I want to conclude by touching on what people can do to help. And as I understand it, this summit is really about bringing together young leaders and empowering everyone to go out and engage on the issues and to drive change. And because this issue is a whole of society problem and none of us can counter it on our own, we do need every one of us to take action. Next slide, please. So I want to leave with sort of 3 actions that we think can make a difference. The first of these is what's already been happening through Project Masoom, which is awareness raising and education. We need to continue to raise the profile of these horrific crimes. We need to collectively ensure that the public knows about the risks, and we need to empower children and young people to engage smartly and safely online, and it's a task for us all. The second one is pretty obvious, but continues to be important, which is that if you see child sexual abuse material, report it. Without these reports, companies may not know that illegal imagery is on their platform or service. And without those reports, law enforcement cannot do their jobs of investigating these crimes and trying to prevent further harm. And without these reports, images can continue to circulate and to re-victimize the person concerned. And finally, and this is not CSAM specific and not necessarily about child sexual abuse, but we always encourage everyone to do your best to make the internet a kinder and a safer place. And one of the ways we encourage that is through our Digital Civility Challenge, which has got 4 elements. The first of these is to live by the golden rule and to treat everyone you connect with online with dignity and with respect. The second point is to respect difference and to honour diverse perspectives. The third is to pause before replying, so thinking and pausing before responding to things you disagree with. And finally, and this is important in this context, to stand up for yourself and others, to tell someone if you feel unsafe, and to offer support to those who are the victims of crime online. And next slide, please. And that brings me to a close. Thank you once again very much for the opportunity to present here. I wanted to make sure that we had time for questions, which I think we do, which is great. But yeah, I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say, but it's a fantastic opportunity to present, and I look forward to hearing the rest of the summit. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that, Liz. Very, very crisp and to the point. You spoke about some of the initiatives that Microsoft has been taking over the years. You spoke about things like a hackathon. You spoke about the need for civil society to get involved. And that's something that young Indians has been doing over the last over 20 years across India. We have over 3,000 primary members, primarily made up of entrepreneurs across the country. We also have over 20,000 student members through our program Yuva, and they are really the ones who go out there and sort of spread the message of what we're doing at Young Indians. And one of the key components there is our Masoom program. So Masoom is the word for innocent or innocence, right? And that's something that has, had a fantastic sort of arc of growth It started out as an awareness program and has now reached the stage of advocacy. So in many of the states across India, the Masoom program has been adopted by state governments. It's part of the school curriculum. We engage with various NGOs to sort of spread the awareness of what is primarily good touch, bad touch. And, our members, our Yuva students go out and do, multiple events through the year. This was obviously in a pre-COVID and a pre-lockdown sort of world where we would go out and do these programs in schools, talk about how important it is to be aware of what's happening to you. One of the challenges, and you being from Microsoft, Liz, maybe you can throw some light on this. One of the challenges we've seen this year is that because most students are at home, and in a country like India, not everyone in the family has a digital device, right? In the lower sections of society. One of the challenges we've seen is how do we sort of digitize our program? How do we reach out to schools or to students when there is probably only one or two devices at home? Students are probably, locked up at home with potential perpetrators. How do we send the message out that, if there is something happening, you need to report it. This is the way to do it. Have you come across this challenge in other countries, and have you solved for that, Liz?
I mean, I think it's a really great question, and I think it's it's and particularly in the Asia Pacific region. I think that challenge around digital inclusion and access to internet connectivity, access to devices, is a challenge that a lot of the countries in the region are grappling with. And I think it's and across every sphere, from safety to education and beyond. I don't think, unfortunately, there is a simple answer to it. One of the lessons we've all been learning from the COVID period is actually, and I think the summit is a good example of it, is the benefits of the internet for connectivity have been huge, and in some circumstances, actually, awareness raising activities perhaps have greater reach because you're getting people at a distance in a way that you may not have previously. But where you don't have access to devices and you don't have that connectivity in the home, or even in some schools, it's not an easy challenge to fix. I think one of the things that we have been looking to do is around skilling more generally, but it still doesn't solve the base problem around connectivity. So I wish I had a simple answer to that, but unfortunately I don't. I think it does really reinforce, though, the importance of not over-relying on one particular method of communication. So thinking about the multiple channels that we can use to get messaging out, whether it's, relying on more traditional media, as well as social media, and as well as kind of the web-based platforms like we're using.
No, so, that's a challenge that we're also trying to solve for, Liz. And, platforms like this give us such a great opportunity to share what we've been doing. So thank you very much for that, Liz. We have a couple more questions. While you've been talking, we've got a lot of questions which have come in from our audience, of course, which is across India, around the world. So one of the questions is, most of our members are entrepreneurs. Many of them are from, the technology or IT sector. One of the questions they have is there an ecosystem for, child safety that can be created around the Indian IT landscape? And is there any way in which, that can be incentivized? So even if you're a smallish kind of company, how can we incentivize them to sort of be champions to fight against CSEAI?
I mean, I think my first answer would be, absolutely, there's definitely an opportunity to create a culture of that there. So I think it comes back to a couple of points. One is around is that awareness raising piece. So where people are part of companies and small companies are being built, and I know Julian Grant is on the line and going to talk shortly about safety by design as well. So where your members are part of a tech ecosystem and have the opportunity to take that safety messaging into their jobs, and even at a very personal individual level, there's great opportunity there to get that excitement. And then I think, as an ecosystem, there's absolutely scope for cross-industry collaboration in that way as well. The Technology Coalition is one example of industry collaboration, and Ian made the point that the We Protect Global Alliance is looking to grow a more diverse membership from different parts of the world. Well, ditto the Technology Coalition and bringing in new member companies to collaborate on technological tools, on research, and all the other pillars as well. So I think it's, can go from sort of the very individual level in a day-to-day job to how we work together collectively as industry.
Okay, great. So you're saying there's an opportunity to maybe join something like a tech coalition or Project Protect. You also spoke about briefly, Liz, about how when you were developing tools, for CSAM online, you conducted hackathons with students and, young people. Is there a way in which our Yuva members can sort of, be a part of that? Is that something that Microsoft continues to do? How can young people in India sort of join this, this fight against child sexual abuse online?
So it's not something we've done regularly, but certainly the 360-degree one was a particular opportunity to point in time. But I think it's both the opportunity there where there are large corporates who are leading those efforts to make sure that where we are doing those, that we reach out to bring in expertise, but also thinking about where these things can go from the ground up as well. And from that same point is all it takes sometimes is one person to have a great idea and to pull other people around them. And I think one of the great sense I have of the young Indian movements is of that energy and that space to do interesting things.
Yeah, so does Microsoft try and involve young people, students, young adults to be a part of any of their initiatives around the space?
We have brought young people in previously through an initiative called the Council for Digital Good. That was really more in the kind of the advocacy and the awareness raising space. But I certainly think that there is opportunity where there are things like hackathons to certainly consider bringing young people into that.
Okay, wonderful. And also, before we let you go, Liz, I know, I'm cognizant of the fact that we're running out of time. So just a couple more questions. You spoke about the Project Protect. You said that, the Tech Coalition has now decided to, be more focused, and Project Protect is an outcome of that. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what Project Protect does, what its aims are?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really around, so the project itself is really an uplift around what the Technology Coalition has been doing. So it's putting those strategic pillars in place to take the kind of day-to-day work of the Tech Coalition to the next level and to focus it. And it has included investment in that. So including the new investment fund in technological innovation, including, I believe, some investment into research. So it's really, what Project Protect consists of is a plan for how work proceeds under those pillars. And it's including a lot of work through a range of committees in the Tech Coalition context, where it really is about, thinking now about how we deliver on all of those 5 pillars and how we do that work on transparency, we do that work on that convening and that multi-stakeholder collaboration.
Okay, wonderful. And last question, Liz. We've had so many. I'm sorry we can't take all of them. But the last question is: you mentioned during your talk that you're looking for more data to train your algorithm, your AI, solutions to this problem online. Obviously, India is a large country. There's no shortage of data. So, is there a way in which YI could look at, partnering with Microsoft, look at a way in which maybe we can work together? We can provide you with whatever inputs you may need here, making use of our large network across the country.
I mean, I think the idea of partnership with young Indians is a fantastic opportunity and something we should definitely pick up following the summit. On the data question, it's an interesting one and often a tricky one. One of the ongoing challenges for any technological development on child sexual exploitation and abuse imagery or in this space is that the data we need to train our tools is itself often unlawful, and that goes particularly for training tools that recognize child sexual abuse imagery. For the grooming tool, it's obviously giving it the kind of the language that it needs to recognize the different types of grooming conversations. And again, there are obviously sensitivities around the way you construct and train that and the care you have to take with that data. But I think, where there's a potential to partner with a network for outcomes, we should definitely be looking for opportunities.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for that, Liz. You're doing, something which is extremely, extremely important in this age that we currently live in. It looks like we've moved now, most of our things online. We see our children, spending so much time online. So what you're doing is so, so important. So kudos to you, kudos to your team at Microsoft. Thank you very much for, the phenomenal work that you're doing. And of course, thank you very much for joining us today. I know it's almost 1 o'clock or maybe past 1 o'clock, 1 a.m. In New Zealand. You've taken the time out to join us today. So once again, on behalf of Young Indians, thank you very much for being a part of our summit. And we hope, we'll have an opportunity in future to maybe invite you back to our programs and maybe to participate together, to connect together, on initiatives that you may be driving through Microsoft. So thank you very much, Liz Thomas, for joining us today. You had the efforts at Microsoft for the Asia Pac region on fighting child sexual abuse and digital safety in general. So thank you very much for your time today, Liz.
Thank you very much.